Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode, our podcast relating to the natural food industry, the health and wellness industries. And I'm very excited to have my guest. By the way, I'm Bruce Singer, a host of this podcast and founder and CEO of Canada CFOs, which does interim CFOs and fractional CFOs to organizations and business. And I have a very exciting guest today, Bob Hill, who's also a chief financial officer and a CFO, and actually a really good friend of mine. I've known Bob for, I think it's probably over 25 years for sure at this stage. We've done work together. It's just a wonderful, and very insightful. This will be an extremely insightful event. So again, Bob is a chief financial officer. Bob, first tell us about your background and as being a CFO, and then we'll get into some other cool stuff that you're working on too. Tell us about yourself.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I started my career with PwC a number of years ago, and left and decided to move into the consumer packaged goods world. Then spent a number of years in senior positions with both Campbell Soup and Nestle, and then had the opportunity to move into the Pharma and Biotech world. And did so. I spent a number of years with GlaxoSmithKline before moving over to Sanofi Pasteur. So Sanofi Pasteur is the vaccine division of Sanofi Aventis, and the site in Toronto produces 25% of the global production for Sanofi's vaccines. Then started to head in a little different direction to move into more of an entrepreneurial world, and I spent time with Blue Goose, which produced organic foods, and then started to work in to the private equity world and worked with Motion Specialties, as well as being VP Finance for a Carlyle portfolio company, but started to work on scaling a companies, which has brought me to Noblegen, where that's what we're trying to do now, is to scale the business.
So let's talk about Noblegen, because we had a conversation earlier. It's very exciting. I mean, the innovation was just incredible when you were sharing with me. And being a layman, I'm an accountant by trade, so we're going to talk. I'm very excited. So tell us about your mission, your team, and tell us about what's Noblegen all about.
Yeah, the way we would describe ourselves as a living technology company that is trying to solve some of the world's most pressing problems through microorganisms. And in the first microorganism that we're working with is Euglena gracilis, which is an algae. What we're trying to do initially in food is provide an alternative to the traditional meat that's been used to feed the world for a long time. And then the problem we're really trying to address is the fact that we've got 7.5 billion people on the planet right now, and we have the ability to feed about 4.5 billion properly. And this is highly relevant in the world that we're in today, where we've obviously got challenges with the war in Ukraine. We've got a population that's continuing to expand, and we're trying to ultimately reduce carbon emissions and methane gases. And so that's what we're trying to do through Euglena gracilis.
So how are you doing that? Give me a let's dig down specifically in the food.
Yes.
Because so you have this algae, this product. Like, I guess I'm trying to look at, as a consumer, where does it come to?
Yeah. So what we do is we grow Euglena, and we do it through fermentation tanks. So we don't have all the complications of traditional food where we're using a tremendous amount of agriculture and water and in land and in being able to grow euglena, we're able to do it in tanks, and ultimately we can produce ingredients, and we can also produce finished food. So we can produce beef analogs, pork analogs, meat analogs. When I talk about an analog, so it could be a beef burger, it might be pulled pork, it might be a meat offering or a fish offering like salmon, for example. And our objective is to be able to produce a product that has the same taste profile as their traditional meat-based equivalents, but to do so in a far more environmentally friendly manner. And that's what we're all about. So meet the price, over time of conventional analogs, but also meet the flavor profile and the nutritional profile.
So, I mean, as a consumer, if I like salmon, so as a consumer, when I eat salmon, you mean I might not even notice that, as far as I know, I'm eating salmon. It's just, what about the actual fish?
Yeah, well, that's the objective
Wow.
is to be able to have a product where you can't tell the difference, or it's very, very marginal.
Isn't that something? That is incredible. That's really, really incredible. And these tanks are all in, I guess they're all over the world, or they're in Ontario. Like, I guess I'll call it, as layman's terms, your farm. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not a farm, but they're physically located in some part of the world, I guess,
Yeah, they're in Peterborough, Ontario for now, but as we scale, we're in a really unique situation to feed the world. And that one of the other challenges with conventional protein as well is you've got to have the right growing conditions or environmental conditions that facilitate traditional cattle and chickens, etc. So if you look at a country like or a continent like Africa that has cassava as part of its regular diet, then what we can do is we can use the waste streams for cassava to actually feed euglena. So all of a sudden, you're no longer dependent upon weather factors. You're growing it inside. And because of this flexible feedstock issue, we're literally in a position to feed the world.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. So let's jump to the finance side. And as I'm talking, the other things, I have to ask you one more question. I forgot. Is this considered organic, or is it not? Like, explain, how does it fit into the current food, the layman's food,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's not organic, but it's vegan. It's non-GMO. It's very natural. When you start to look at the ingredient list of products produced from euglena, you're not looking at a long list of additives. And when you start to look at many of the plant-based alternatives that are out there now, these are heavily processed foods. And when you start to look through the ingredient list, you start to wonder exactly what you're eating. But you don't get that with euglena. And relative to some of the other plant-based alternatives out there, we are able to very closely match the nutritional profile associated with conventional meat.
Wow,
so you've got all the same essential amino acids. You've got a high digestibility associated with euglena. So some real attractive elements to euglena. And one of the things that's interesting as well is euglena is considered to be a protist, which means that it's got characteristics associated with animal and plant life. So on the animal side, it's actually got a muscle to it, which puts you in a position from a food production perspective to be able to produce analogs that have texture to them. So that, again, helps you without requiring a long list of ingredients.
That's unbelievable. So you're a CFO, and let's jump to the finance side where
Mhm.
you're at. Tell us what's going on from your primary role. I think we're going to talk about fundraise, and I want you to get
Yeah.
into that too. Where it's your company right now. Is it a public company? Is it pre? Is it what is it? Is it public pre-IPO or it's
Yeah, we're a private company today,
yeah?
and we're pre-revenue. So what
Okay.
we're trying to do is work through our Series C raise, which will allow us to raise enough money to complete our what we call our Gen 1 facility, which is in Peterborough. It's pilot plant. It's a pilot plant, but it has the ability to scale to support launches into the marketplace. So we're trying to raise capital to facilitate that scale up of the plant, as well as to further the technology to facilitate launch of products into the marketplace.
Okay, so you said you're into Series C, so you raised Series A, you've raised Series B. This is now the third round. Uh, just share as a CFO, what is your experience? What is the role of the CFO in this particular venture? Your role?
Yeah, it's an interesting one relative to an established company. You don't have all of the policies and procedures in place that you might of a more established company, but I think that's where my background helps in many respects. In that I can bring that structure of a larger organization without bringing the related bureaucracy to put some processes in place and help to move the business forward. I also, direct the day-to-day activities of the business as well. So it's a pretty broad-based role. But our focus right now is to manage the daily finances and to stay bootstrapped while we focus on then our Series C raise. We have the fortune to have some incredible investors behind us. We've got BDC as an investor. We've got J.R. Richardson and Sons, the largest ag producers in Canada, as investors, and we've also got a couple of significant individuals that
Wow.
are backing the company as well. So we've had incredible support from our shareholders, and I expect that will continue. But we're also trying to raise funds to, as I said, to expand and increase capacity of our Gen 1 facility at the same time as continuing to develop the technology and also launch into the marketplace.
Okay, so it's very common because a lot of clients that I know, everybody's looking for money. That's a very common.
Mm-hmm.
What are the trends you're seeing, and what has to how do you do it? Like get more into like the role. Like what are the trends you're seeing, and what do they need to see? Like just curious. So other entrepreneurs that are listening can really understand what's really. It's not as simple as I don't think it's as simple as it seems. You know. And
Yeah.
it's not just going in there. It's not just going in there with passion does a lot, but you can't go in there with just passion, and.
No, and I think as well the marketplace has changed.
Yeah.
I think there's been a tremendous amount of money that's gone into the alternative protein space, and you've seen right across the technology sector a significant correction in valuations over the last number of months. So I think what it says to be able to move or to raise capital moving forward, you have to have a very clear story. You've got to be differentiated versus your competitors, and that's where Euglena has some very significant differences in technology versus some of the other plant-based alternatives. But you got to have that differentiation. I think that's where, and then the financials that you've got have to be well thought through. So any kind of a business model has to hang together, and then as well, I think the role as CFO starts to move somewhat from conventional CFO role into marketing and sales to some degree. You've got to be able to tell the story in a compelling way and address the concerns that investors have, and ultimately come back to what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and how are you going to go about doing it.
And included, I guess it comes with a deck, and you have to support. There's a lot of numbers that are shown in return, and interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, and it's about finding the right balance between a lot of detail and being able to tell the story succinctly. Because at the end of the day, with a lot of investors, you're not going to get a lot of time spent flipping through your deck. So if you can't tell the story quickly and succinctly, and in a compelling manner, then you don't get to the next level of being able to meet with the investors.
Well, today you've told a very compelling story in a very short. I'm compelled. It's very exciting. This is I mean, potentially, look, I'm a layman in this area, right? But it's also a complete game changer. Is any other cool stuff that you can share, like some of the other things you're working on, like ultimately?
Yeah, I can tell you about another project that I'm working on, which was a project that I started over a year ago, working with a doctor that I've known for a long time that's developed a software leveraging artificial intelligence to diagnose migraines. And this is something that could be an absolute game changer, in that I supported him back before I started working with Noblegen, but in my mind, I made a commitment to him to help him raise funds and to work on the business plan. And yeah, I'm excited as we work through. That's a seed round, but very excited to see the potential of that. And I think that what's compelling with that company, and also with Noblegen at the end of the day, is these are two technologies that can make a difference in people's lives. And I find that very compelling, because certainly in early stage companies, there's lots of challenges. But if you believe in what the companies can do, is trying to do, and solve some of the world's challenges, then it's easy to find a little bit of energy to make some things happen.
Well, it's having the passion.
Yeah, I would agree.
The passion. It's having the passion. Sometimes, there's a different ingredient. Like we look at we'll just go off topic. We look like the space we play in, which is the CFO space. Yeah, you can produce the numbers and do all these things. But one thing that we both learned is not just from an investor point of view, it's all stakeholders. As you build a team, you can't replace passion.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's one thing that people see and investors see. Otherwise, it's so important, that you really believe what you're doing in passion. Bob, this has been extremely, extremely insightful. And I want to thank you for doing this. And I thank you for doing this and sharing your journey. And I wish you all the best with your Series C round with Noblegen. So if people want to invest, where do they find you? Where do they go to the website? Like, where do they find it? You never know what goes on the website, right? People want to know more. Where do they go?
Absolutely. They can go to the website, and they can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Always happy to meet more people. So very open to people connecting with me.
Thank you. And I'll put a connection to your link on our podcast as well.
So great. And thank you, Bruce. It's always a pleasure. You've got a strong ability to find CFOs to fit roles, and you've got a long track record in being successful.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to support you.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much.